Good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing? It's me again. I'm back with another topic today. I'm going to be talking about the issue of forgiveness. Forgiveness is quite a contentious issue simply because typically it is not taught correctly, and the people that are pushing a wounded party to forgive aren't doing it with sensitivity, they're not doing it with care, and they're not doing it with love. Forgiveness is something that every single person must strive to attain, irrespective of whether or not you're a person of faith. It is a universal truth that once you forgive, or if you put yourself in a place to try to forgive, you will accomplish that. And once you accomplish that, whether it's immediately or in a few years' time, you'll find that you're better placed to be able to live a substantial and holistic life, as opposed to someone who doesn't forgive and they stay trapped in that particular moment. They cannot move beyond the offence that's caused them to struggle with this issue of forgiveness. If you're based in the UK, you'll recall the story of James Bulger, and it was one of the most shocking cases ever, certainly in my lifetime. And what happened was there's these two young boys, they were aged 10, they lured a 2-year-old boy away from his mother out of a shop, and they proceeded to beat and kill him. It wasn't as though they just beat and killed him, it was the way they did it. It was satanic, actually. It was unparalleled and unprecedented. When they first found his body, because he'd been left on a railway track, a train had gone over his body and had sliced a poor little boy in two. I'm hoping he was dead when that happened, but that's how he was found. And when they saw all the bruises and everything that happened to this boy, they assumed that it was a deranged person that had done it. Horror of all horrors, when they discovered it was two 10-year-old boys that did this to this little boy. And the mother, I believe her name is Denise, I'll never forget the look on her face when they first managed to interview her. It's like her face was frozen in total disbelief, horror, devastation, and the most unimaginable agony. I can still see her face now. And she was dazed when they were interviewing her, when she realised this thing that they found on the railway tracks, it was later identified as a human body, and it turned out it was her 2-year-old boy. And I remember, obviously, she was very angry, very, very, very angry. You know, she was struggling to comprehend what had happened, as anybody would. And when the case went to trial, those two boys only got a very light sentence. They were really kind of, I thought it was quite distasteful, actually. Their two boys, I think they got a total of 8 years each. And when they were to be released from prison, they'd get brand new identities. Sorry, what would have been James Bulger's 21st birthday, they interviewed her again. And, you know, she still had that same look on her face. She had this, it's like her face was forever frozen in that one expression: shock, horror, pain, grief, disbelief, and anger. I'm not even going to pretend that I can fathom what she's feeling. I can't. All I know is that in order for her to be able to move on, as much as it's possible for someone to move on beyond something so horrific happening to them, she needs somebody around her to help her to navigate the choppy waters of forgiveness. Not because what those boys didn't matter. Of course it matters. They killed her son in the most barbaric fashion imaginable. But for her own sake, in order for her to have some sort of a life that isn't, you know, scarred permanently by grief, she has to find a way to forgive those boys for what they did. It sounds like a stupid thing to say, but the reality is what she needs to do. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but she has to realise that she needs to start taking steps in that direction for her own sanity, for her own peace of mind, and for her to be able to live as healthily as she possibly can the remainder of her days, as someone can who's had that happen to them. And I think of also a friend of mine, well, she's not a friend, but she's someone who I used to go to church with, and she had been sexually abused by her father, her brothers, and her brother's friends. Now, her brothers started to sexually abuse her when they happened to stumble across her father sexually abusing her. So now they just, you know, the floodgates were opened in their mind, sort of thing. and this perversion took place over a period of years. And I remember her showing me a picture of herself at that time, and she was standing in a lift. For the Americans watching, the lift is an elevator, and she just had her head bowed, and it was in a grey metallic lift, and it just felt so cold and gloomy, and just the whole atmosphere, you could feel her pain, you could feel her depression, her shame, her sadness, her grief and her sorrow. And she just felt like she just wanted to kill herself. That's how she felt a lot during that time. She felt suicidal a lot. And I remember when she first told me what happened, I didn't even know what to say. I had never knowingly met somebody who had been sexually abused. I didn't even know how to begin to advise her. I couldn't say to her, well, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. I didn't want to say anything trite or meaningless or foolish. So I listened to her speak to her, listened to her tell me her story. And at the end of it, all I could do was pray with her. Interestingly about this woman though, she never said, why did this happen to me? She never said that. What she did say was, I don't understand why this happened to me, but I'm going to use what's happened to me to help other women who are in the same situation. And I always remember that about her, because typically when you first meet someone who's gone through a really terrible ordeal, it's the anger, the longing for vengeance, the longing to harm the people that have harmed them. She didn't have that at all, which I found very interesting. But anyway, over the years, she took steps to recovery. Sometimes she, had a bit of a relapse, and the depression would overwhelm her again. But she was on all kinds of medication and all kinds of things. And she had a good enough support system around her that when she fell, people would help get her back up on her feet and help counsel her and such. And then I left that church. And shortly after I left, one of the guys who was there invited me to an event he was having. And I went along. And it turned out this particular woman was there. And she was looking good, she was looking okay, and I was asking her how she was doing, having a little bit of a catch up, and she said now she's completely free from what happened to her. She's completely delivered from that entire dark episode of her life. So I was intrigued. I was like, well, what happened? And she said she'd gone so far with her recovery, but then she had this stomach condition, and no matter what the doctor prescribed, the condition never changed. The condition wouldn't go away. And she kept on praying about it. And the Lord revealed to her that that was as a result of unforgiveness. This ailment would not leave except she forgave her father and her brothers for what they'd done to her. Now, let me just interject at this point. This was now years after the event, probably like 7 or so years after the events had ended. And during that time, God had taken time to work with her, heal her, restore her, make her a whole person again, deliver her from a sense of shame and all of that. But in order for her to cross over into total freedom, there was just this one obstacle of forgiveness. And it's done in such a gentle way, not to say that, this has happened to you because you're unforgiving, but he wanted to show her the power of forgiveness. So she went. She's bold. She went to her father's house and gathered all her family together, all the brothers and everybody who'd sexually molested her. And she says, you know what? I forgive you for what you've done to me. I don't even know what exact words were, but I remember she said that. And then she prayed for her family. She prayed for all of them for this spirit of sexual abuse, this perverted spirit, this perversion to be broken off her family. And she said, a very short time after that, this stomach ailment that she'd had for all those years just went. And she understood firsthand and as a permanent testimony the power of forgiveness and the need to forgive. Forgiveness frees you in the first instance. It does wonders for your soul, for your spirit, first and foremost. And then it just releases you into living the rest of your life. It releases you into being able to complete the steps to your healing, having access to all of these things that will help you on your way to move away from what's happened to you and to be able to get on with the rest of your life. Forgiveness does not mean that what that person has done to you is okay. Of course it's not okay. How can it be okay? Forgiveness does not mean that what happened to you wasn't that big of a deal. Of course it was a huge deal. These two instances I've given you are a very big deal. And it can take years and years and years to come to the place where that person is ready to forgive and move on. It's not because that they're wrong in doing that. We all process things different ways, and their process might take them a bit longer because that sense of rage and shame and everything else is so strong, it's difficult for them. And if you're with a person who's struggling to forgive someone for something, you need to be very gentle and very careful how you handle them, because whilst they do need to move through the steps to their full recovery, when it hasn't happened to us, we can be a bit impatient, and we need to just be very careful with how we handle this wounded, broken soul. We need to be very patient and very long-suffering with them and help them through the various stages to their recovery. Forgiveness doesn't mean that other person is also off the hook. That's not what it means. Accept that person repents for what they've done, and accept they come to a place of recognise that what they've done is wrong, and they remedy it where they can. They're going to pay for it in the end anyway. That's not our place to do anything about it necessarily. I understand the need a lot of people have for evening the score, dealing with the person that did what they did, but the reality is you won't get any benefit out of it. Trust me, as someone who is very vengeful, I was a very vengeful person. If someone hit me, I would have to kick them. I had to one-up them so they knew not to ever do that again. But it doesn't do anything. Sorry about that, someone came to the door. What was I saying? It doesn't mean that what happened to you was insignificant. It doesn't mean that person's going to get away with it. But vengeance solves nothing. After you've exacted your revenge, the situation hasn't really changed. If someone had killed one of your loved ones, as with the Denise Bulger case, your child is still dead. It's accomplished nothing. It might make you feel better temporarily in those few moments when you're exacting your revenge, but in the long run, it will be as if nothing has happened. It just doesn't free you. It doesn't heal you. It doesn't liberate you. It doesn't transform you. It doesn't take away the pain. It doesn't bring a person back. Unforgiveness does absolutely nothing for you. And I was having a conversation with my mum because she's struggling to forgive people for things that happened before me or any of my sisters were born. And every once in a while she'll bring something up. I've been saying to her, look, you need to let all these things go. It's been so long, so long. There has to come a point where you forgive. Forgiveness isn't saying that your pain isn't valid, but forgiveness is saying you need to get on with the rest of your life. And the one way to do that is by releasing that individual. Forgive as often as you need to forgive to be able to really break free from that. What I mean is I don't mean you keep letting them back in and they keep doing the same mess. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about on your journey, because with the things that happened to me, I've had to say I forgive this person again and again and again and again, because every time I'd remember the incident, the anger rose again, the wanting to beat them up rose again, and I had to again and again and again and again keep on saying I forgive them, keep on praying for forgiveness in my heart for that person. I'm still doing that now in certain situations, but it has to be done. I want to be free. I want to be a person that doesn't have any bitterness, any ugliness, or any of that thing in my heart. I want to live like a free person. I want to soar like an eagle. And one of the ways you do that is by releasing all hatred from your heart. Just get it out. Get it out. Do not allow it to take up any of your life. And there's another question a lot of people have. Well, if I forgive that person, am I supposed to allow them back into my life? Well, I'd say that depends on what it is they've done, number one, and depends on whether or not they have repented for what they've done to you. Let me give you an example. The lady I spoke of who was sexually molested, and just say raped, by her father and her brothers and their friends. One day her father, her biological father, who had been abusing her, said this to her in the presence of all of their relatives. If I could do it again, I would. Let that sink in. This is a father admitting publicly that he has raped his own daughter, and if he could do it again, he would. Now, should she allow this man back into her life with that kind of attitude, with that kind of spirit? Of course she shouldn't. He's not remotely apologetic for what he's done at all. He doesn't even see that he's done anything wrong. Of course she shouldn't allow him back into her life, because he has said that he will rape her again should he get the opportunity. No, she should not allow him back into her life. She's married and she's got a child. Should she allow her father anywhere near her daughter? Of course not, because he hasn't changed. He hasn't repented. He I don't even know what kind of spirit that is. I don't even know what you call that. But he doesn't care. He has no remorse, no guilt, no shame over what he's done. Should such a person be allowed back into your life? Of course not. Of course not. If a person is genuinely repentant and they demonstrate that by completely changing the behaviour that was so offensive and they don't revisit it again, then you can know that person is serious. They've taken your forgiveness seriously and they're looking to make amends. However, even then you still don't necessarily have to allow them back into your life. Sometimes people come into your life and they create these kind of situations whereby you can grow as an individual. They might have been your friend for a period of time, they've done something to you, and now you're very angry about it, and now you have to go through this thing of forgiveness, and you know how to forgive. And that could be the reason that person's in your life, for all you know. Do you know what I mean? Not everybody who comes into your life is supposed to be there till the end of time. Some people come into your life for a season and for a reason, and then they're gone. Others are in your life for longer. Circumstance and God dictate the time that person's in your life. But don't feel that just because you've forgiven the person, you have to allow them back in your life. You don't have to allow the person back into your life. It depends upon what their heart is like towards you. If they haven't repented of what they've done, if they don't care what they've done, don't let them back in. But if they have repented of what they've done, if they do care, it's up to you. You can let them back in, or allow God to show you whether that was for a season that they were in your life, or whether they're to be in your life for the long haul, for beyond that period of time. Forgiveness is something that has to be done. It's not something that we can try and bargain our way out of. There is just no blessing in it if you don't forgive that person. It's not something you have to do immediately, because obviously something very traumatic could have happened to you, and you need to go through a process of healing first of all before you can address that issue, like my friend had to. She had to go through a process of healing that took several years. Her whole image had to be restored. She had to be built back up as a person before she could actually even contemplate forgiving her family for what they did to her. So it's not about the length of time it takes. As long as you get to the point where you can actually forgive somebody, that's the most important thing. And just focus on that. Don't worry about what you can't do right now. Focus on the fact that you're putting yourself in a place where you will be able to do it. So just take small steps, One of the most important steps I say is not talking about it every single day. Depending upon the magnitude of the thing, it will be in the forefront of your mind, but you can't keep it there. And we have to discipline ourselves to do certain things. So with the people I had issues with, for a long time, man, for a long time, it was very difficult, very, very difficult to forgive and forget and move on. And I just kept on praying about it. I just kept praying, saying, Lord, I want to forgive these people for what they've done to me. I want to forgive and release. I just want to forgive and release. I want to forgive and release. And I wanted to do it on a daily basis simply because I want to be free. I want to be free. I want to get on with the rest of my life. I don't want to be bitter. I don't want to be twisted. I don't want to live a life of regret. Someone pointed out to me yesterday, life is so short. You really don't want to spend significant quantities of that precious time living in bitterness and unforgiveness. So work at it. Even if that's what we have to do every single day, just don't start by not talking about it every single day. I'm going to leave a link below from something called the Forgiveness Project. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's by this lady. Her name is Marina. I'm not going to try and pronounce her surname, but it's Italian. And she's not a person that believes in God. She's not a person of faith at all. But she's collected these amazing stories of people forgiving in the most incredible circumstances. And I think it would be a really good place for you to start if you're someone who's struggling with forgiveness. It would be really good for you to look at that and start understanding the power of forgiveness, how freeing it is for the person who can forgive. It's really, really important that you do that. So just start reading these stories and start realising that the situation that you're in might not be as dramatic as a lot of these people's situation was, but they still managed to find the strength to forgive, whether or not they had a faith. And the outcome was they're free. Sometimes their story is what is now giving them a platform to be able to go all over the world and speak to others in situations similar to theirs. So I don't want to sound twee or trite, but good can come out of it. put it that way. And I know scripturally the Bible says that all things work together for good for those that love God and are called according to his purpose. But even if you're not a believer, if you work at forgiving, at forgiving the people for what they've done to you, it can also have the same effect. You can also find yourself having a platform whereby you can go and speak to encourage others who are in a similar situation, who are battling with the same things that you were battling with. So I'll just say to you, give yourself a shot, give yourself a chance at being free from the prison of unforgiveness, if that's where you are, so that you can live the rest of your life victoriously. It won't be easy. It is one of the hardest things you can possibly do. Like I said, in the case of my friend, can you imagine? Do you know what I mean? It's not like she was forced to. It was when the time was right that she forgave. When she was able to, when she'd been healed, when she'd been restored, when her identity had been restored, when her womanhood was put back together again, when she was strong, that's when she was able to forgive. It wasn't before that. She wasn't able to do it before that. And that's perfectly legitimate because she'd been through a terrible, terrible, terrible ordeal. So don't worry about the fact that it might be taking a long, long time to forgive. It just depends on what the circumstance is. Do you know what I mean? It's easier to forgive someone for stepping on your toe than it is to forgive someone for killing a family member, right? So we need to put it in perspective. But just put yourself in a place where you can forgive. Nothing is worth the price that unforgiveness costs. Nothing is worth living for the longest time in bitterness and hatred and contempt and always thinking about the things that happened in the past. Nothing's worth it. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say. I'll leave the link below of the forgiveness project I was talking about and have a look at it. It's quite inspiring actually, because some of the stories are really deep. Some of the stories are amazing, and I think it really touch you and it'll really kind of help open your eyes to the fact that forgiveness is a very, 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 very powerful thing. Forgiveness isn't weak. If someone has genuinely forgiven, that is strength, right? You're seeing a very, very, very strong individual. It takes a lot of strength. And it's not easy, but when you do it, the benefits are amazing. So I just want to leave you with that. So check out the link and check out the stories and let me know what you think. Let me know if any of those stories particularly relates to you, if any of them particularly touched you, and if you're in a place of unforgiveness, if you'd like some prayer to help you overcome certain things, I'm more than willing to pray for you. If you feel more comfortable going to a friend to get them to pray for you or to share your story with, go for it. But take a step today to free yourself from any burden of unforgiveness, because you have the rest of your life to live, and that's a long time to live in unforgiveness. Have a wonderful, blessed day. Take care. Bye-bye.